One day, Mullah Nasruddin said to his wife, "If the weather is fine tomorrow, I'm going to the market to buy us a donkey." So his wife looked at him and said, "And why haven't you said 'God willing' like we always say?" The mullah was disgruntled because he'd had a series of misfortunes, so he was sulking. So under his breath he said, "And a fat lot of good it's done me." The next day the sun was shining, and he went off to the market, and he found a fine donkey and fine fettle, and he bought it for a very good price, and he was riding it home, congratulating himself, and he said, you see, I can do it on my own." Just then a snake slithered across the road, and the donkey was so afraid that it tossed him off and bolted, and Mullah Nasruddin went tumbling into a bracken where he was scratched and battered and bruised, and just when he was trying to get out of it, he rolled down an embankment a great distance, and at the bottom there he was, bloodied and torn, and so he had to make his way the long way home. And by the time he got there it was dark, and his wife had locked the door. He knocked on the door, and his wife said, "Who's that?" And the mullah said, "It's your beloved husband, Mullah Nasruddin, God willing." Then there was a merchant. He lived in a small village that was nestled in between mountains, and he plied his trade by gathering a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and mostly selling it to his neighbors in the village. But once a month he would take his donkey and tether it to his cart, and with his only son they would climb the mountain to the overpass, the narrow pathway that led to the villages on the other side of the mountain. Now one day, after they had climbed the mountain and were on this very narrow road, the donkey stopped, and it was noticed that just ahead of them on the road was a great pile of rocks. There had been an avalanche, so all of the rocks were blocking the way for them to pass. So the son said to his father, "Wait, father, I'll remove the rocks from the path." So he jumped down out of the cart, and he began to remove the rocks. He rolled them over the side of the cliff, and he carried them and toted them. It took him several hours and a great deal of perspiration. But after he'd finished, there in the middle of the road was one large stone. It was the base of all the others that had landed, and no matter what he did, he heaved and sweated and pushed, but he could not push that rock off the road. So he went to his father and he said, "Father, I'm very sorry, I cannot move this stone, we'll have to go back." And the father looked at him and said, "Are you sure that you've done everything, son?" And the son paused for a moment and, "Oh, wait!" So he went to the back of the cart, because amongst the goods that they had to sell was a bolt of cloth. So he took out the cloth and he tied it around the stone, and he tried to heave it over to the edge of the cliff. But still he couldn't move it after a great deal of effort. And again he went to his father and said, "Father, I'm very sorry, but we'll have to turn back. I cannot move the stone." And his father looked at him and said, "Son, are you sure that you've done everything that you could?" Then the son thought, "Oh yes." So he went to the back of the cart, because there they had a plank. And so he put the plank under the stone and he tried to lever it over the cliff. But even after a great deal of heaving and effort, he was still not able to move that stone. And when he came back sweating, he said, "Oh, Father, we cannot move the stone. We'll have to turn back." And his father again said to him, "Son, are you sure you've done everything?" And the son got quite angry. He said, "Yes, Father, I've done everything that I can to move that stone." "Everything?" said his father gently. "But you haven't asked me to help." And so his father climbed down from the cart, and the son and the father heaved the stone and pushed it over the cliff. They went on their way. Very often the metaphor has been used of our spiritual path. That metaphor is something like, before enlightenment, we clean out our house. We take down the drapes, we get rid of the rubbish, we clean out the cupboards, and light comes in. So you could say our house is filled with light. But then, after enlightenment, begins the demolishing of the house itself. The windows are taken out, the walls come down, the roof is taken off. And we can say that, metaphorically speaking, this is our beliefs, even our truths, our belief in the hereafter, and all those other things that have kept our house intact, even our belief in a God out there. So if this is the case, and we realize that indeed our house has been dismantled, such beliefs and truths have been demolished, what then is the meaning of this story? Why is it, speaking for myself, that still on our lips, if not the words "God willing," "Thy will be done"? What then is this? Just like the stories of the other days, this question has been raised. What is it that remains when our beliefs and our truths have been taken away, dismantled? What is it that remains for us that makes the poetry of a Hafiz, or a Rumi, or a St. John, or Rabi'a, the beloved, the friend, knowing from their stories that their houses have been totally and absolutely razed, not even a mote of a foundation stone remains in their life? What is it then that brings these words to our lips. What's the meaning of these stories for us?
Well, it's like we just can't do anything without God. You know, we have that thing in us that is, then we just do whatever it is that, but we can't do it ourselves. It's letting go of our ego to think that it's us, because it's God, it's us God, or God us, or whatever.
Somehow.
It's also recognising the help that's been offered.
Yes.
So you might get help, but you don't recognise it, you don't take it.
Yes.
You might recognise you might take it. It's a matter of broadening out and trying to figure out what's there. Because that's what the boy was trying to do. I was trying to help him do that. And it's that old story where the guy was in the storm, prayed to God, sent 3 ships, didn't take any of them.
Yes.
God will save me.
Yes.
Didn't recognise it. Yeah. So it's a bit like that.
Thank you.